I'm delighted to welcome to the show today Dr. Timothy Yen from America. So welcome, Tim.
Thank you, Elaine, for having me on your show.
You're not just a doctor and a pretty face, you're an author as well, and very, very big in the psychology field, aren't you?
Huge. I love the topic.
So tell us first of all about your book, and then perhaps we can go into why you wrote it, what it's meant to be for, who can benefit from it, etc. So what's the title of the book, first of all?
I do have it right here. It's called Choose Better, the Optimal Decision-Making Framework. So I provide my readers a simple guide to work through any sort of circumstance, situation, life-altering choice, or something even small and simple, but there's a little bit of a stuck point. I offer my readers a way to work through any problem.
Okay, so people who are stuck, in essence.
Correct.
Okay, so next question then: how did you get to write such a book? What was the reasoning behind not just the book but also the title?
Sure. So it was a little bit serendipitous. It came from a meeting with a friend who was a CEO in a tech company, and we just were having dinner. I was picking her brain on ways to be of service to companies or companies like hers. And she told me that being able to help her supervisors, her employees think better under deadlines, competing expertise. Everyone has their opinion about what they think is best. How can we help everyone work as a team, work through things quickly, effectively? That would be of most value. So that's what got my brain gears turning. And I thought about it a little bit more, thought about the clients that I have the privilege of working with. How do I help them work through problems? And discovered that there are certain themes, certain ways of doing this thinking work that has been beneficial for all the people I've coached and counseled. And I put it together in a book, which won't just help tech employees, but I think it'll help human beings that have a lot of choices and things that they need to sort through in order to make a good decision.
Wonderful. And when did you write the book? When did you publish the book, Tim?
January 26th, 2021. So it just hot off the press.
Brand new
Yeah.
baby. Cool. Okay, that's wonderful. And how can people get hold of the book?
Amazon is a great way to do it. Just type Choose Better and it should be right there.
It's a great title. So tell us how you got to be involved and interested in the topic of psychology.
Well, the honest answer is I didn't get my first choice in being a journalist. So the long backstory that I will make very short is did some journalist type work, did a little radio show in high school, thought I wanted to do it in real life after high school, and decided to enlist in the US Army. Found out that I was severely colorblind, so I could not be a journalist. Apparently that color vision is very important to be a journalist. So mental health was one of the very few options left over in the military. And that one sounded the most interesting to me. Quite frankly, I thought it was a sham job. Figured if people will pay me just to chit chat about their life, I was like, hey, sign me up. I'm totally good with that job. Of course, when I started getting trained and started doing counseling with soldiers, I realized, it wasn't quite as easy as I thought it would be. And this is some heavy stuff. People are sharing really hard stuff about their life. That's when I realized, hey, it's time to really go back to grad school, do this thing right so I can help the most people.
So when did all that happen?
You're looking for dates. Let me think. I enlisted in 2011. No, 2003. I got out in 2011. So I enlisted in the Army in 2003. Graduated from grad school in 2014.
Cool. So you joined the Army, but then did you come out of the Army, or did they sponsor you through your course, perhaps?
Yes and no. So they sponsored me financially, if that's what you mean. So I was able to get this really cool thing called a GI Bill in the US, and that essentially pays for a lot of your academic schooling. So I was able to take advantage of that. And thanks to Uncle Sam, he did help me pay for my undergrad, all but one semester of my graduate school. So that was a huge help.
Cool. So when did you do your PhD?
Between the years of 2009 to 2014.
Cool. I don't have a PhD, but I have a master's degree, and I graduated when I was 40. So it's
Love it.
never too late, is it, to do anything? So that's why I
Absolutely.
was asking about the spread of dates. I left school at 16 with a handful of O levels, as they were then, and not very much of anything at all. And then I signed up for a master's. I didn't even have an A level, so I didn't finish senior school. I left very early, and I just didn't turn up for school one day, and I got myself a job, and that was that, which I don't think would be allowed today. But I'm going back over nearly 50 years, so there we go. So what's the biggest takeaway for you with what's happened with your career? So it's kind of a mistaken career, but it sounds as though it's one that you've really taken a shine to.
For me, the big thing that I concluded for myself is I wanted to pick a career that essentially met these two objectives, right? Objective number one is I wanted a career that was challenging, that required a certain level of uh, creativity, critical thinking. I didn't want something that was run of the mill, something really repetitive. So one of the most interesting things in this world are people. People are very fascinating. And you could see 10 people diagnosed with depression, but every single one has a very different tale in terms of how they came to be where they're at. So psychology fit that box for me. People are very fascinating. Box number two was I wanted a job that was meaningful, at least to me, and knowing that being able to partner with people, change the trajectory of their lives, to live in a way that was optimal and fulfilling, made it fulfilling for me. So counseling was it for me. So it met those two requirements.
It's so important to be passionate and interested in what you do, isn't it? So many people go through their whole life not really knowing what their purpose is, and they're just kind of bumbling along from one day to the next. They really don't like their job. They get stressed out. That affects their health, of course. They're miserable, and of course they infect everybody around them with their misery. So to be able to do something that you enjoy is pure delight, and it's a real blessing, isn't it?
It is, and I'm thinking about the work that you do when I was looking at your website with the DISC personalities and understanding one's identity essentially. And I realize a lot of people do bumble around because they're not willing to do the hard work. It takes some level of work and insight and honesty to work through some of those things. And again, there's a small percentage of people that get lucky. They just happen to bumble into a job that they don't hate and it kind of works out for them. But most people, I would say, they need to create it. They need to forge the path, so to speak. And it's hard to know what you're looking for if you don't really know what matters to you, what's valuable to you. And personality is definitely something that informs your values in terms of what you're naturally gifted at, the way that your brain is wired. So absolutely, very important work.
Mm. The reason that well, I've had with my personality profiling stuff, I've been doing over 25 years now, and I'm really absolutely chuffed to bits that I have my platform that's available now for students or for organisations that work with students free of charge. Because had I known what my behavioural traits were when I left school, I probably would have done something, more interesting straight away. Instead of that, I bumbled around for probably 5 years, and then I started a business. So over 40 years ago, I started in business, and that's what I'm good at. That's what I find pleasurable, having a challenge and then building something with other people. But had I known that at school, as I say, I probably would have changed things, you know, and done different things. So with the radio and the podcast and everything that I do now, and linking with people's personalities, I'm always banging on about how it affects their health. So our personality style, our mental health and well-being, the whole thing is all linked, you know, because where our mind goes, our body follows. And if you know what you're predisposed towards, then you can manage yourself better. So how does that inform you when you speak with clients?
100% agree with everything you said in terms of we are holistic beings and we don't have a mental compartment, a spiritual compartment, an emotional compartment, right? They all inform one another, like you said. So if our mind ain't right or our body is not right, it's going to affect the other parts and we're just not going to be whole, right? We're not going to be where we want to be. And with this choose better frame of mind, it is teaching people a skill, right? It's well, for one, it's helping people slow down to really evaluate some of their life choices because, like you said, everything's connected. So your life is, in some ways, a sum of its parts with your decision making. The kind of decisions you make will create a certain kind of narrative. And the way you think about your life will also create some sort of narrative. And so often people don't take the time to think things through and really evaluate what kind of life that they want to have, what kind of person that they're becoming. And my hope is my book will provide a guideline for people to begin that work.
It's really important to understand who we are as early as possible in life. And sometimes I find that when I do with people, they are emotionally driven, and then their logical side of their brain talks them out of whatever they felt intuitively was right. So at one level, I agree with you in that people need to stop and think and, you know, work things out. Having said that, if you're an emotionally led person, and how often do you hear of people saying, oh, damn, I wish I should have listened to my intuition. I should have done this and I felt that was wrong or right or whatever it was. But my head, you know, I talked myself out of it. So again, going back to understanding who you are as an individual as early as possible, you can then make better choices. You can choose better, in your words, because you know how to manage yourself. It's not rocket science, is it? When it's really so simple, but we're not taught this.
No, I wish that the work that you do, the work that I do, I wish it was a mandatory course in school, just like understanding taxes, how to balance a checkbook. There's these like really important life skills that I wished was part of our curriculum. Maybe it is in England. I don't know. Maybe it's more advanced over there. But in America, we're really big on math and higher level reading, but there's some of this life stuff that for whatever reason people are just expected to know when they get out of school. So it is kind of humorous when I think of it that way. But yes, emotional intelligence, those things are so crucial to one's success and happiness.
Explain for the benefit of the listeners emotional intelligence.
So emotional intelligence is kind of as a buzzword that's been going around. I think they call it EQ, right? IQ is intelligence quotients, emotional intelligence is EQ. And it's essentially leveraging the emotions that you experience to your benefit rather than having the emotions run you. You're actually letting the emotions that you have to inform how you interact with other people, how you understand yourself, how do you understand the values that you hold. And in my book, Choose Better, I provide that framework, and that is actually part one. Part one of the 4-part series, if you want to call it that, is about understanding your emotions and asking that question. What are my emotions telling me, right? What are my feelings telling me? Because there is no useless emotion, if you want to call it that. If you're going to feel something, it must mean that it's important to you, at least. And the stronger you feel, I would say the more important it is. When's the last time you felt something strongly over something you didn't care about? Probably never, right? So feelings is a very important data point, I call it, uh, for us to make great decisions. And research shows that the speed at which our brains feel emotions, it's something like 1/10 of a second. It's very fast. Like it's part of our uh, limbic system. It kind of hits that part of our brain that's really meant for survival. So that's why we feel things so quickly, because we can't kind of second guess whether or not we should dodge that snake. We need to be like, all right, snake, I'm out of here, before your logic part of your brain even begins to catch up to what the heck just happened. Like, why did I just jump out of the way? So it was meant for good. However, without some level of guidance with our emotional intelligence, we end up not understanding what our feelings are trying to tell us. And we're just going off of a knee jerk reaction. We're just reacting now. And sometimes we're lucky, sometimes we're right, but sometimes not so much. And so emotions play a huge role in our decision making. I challenge people to understand what those feelings are trying to tell you, which I outline in the book, some of the universal feelings that all humans have. And there's a purpose, there's a function, there's a message behind every single feeling that we have.
How do you relate all this stuff to soldiers? You mentioned that when you sort of first started off, you were counselling soldiers. So I would imagine
Sure.
a lot of the work that you would be doing in that field would be different to day-to-day run-of-the-mill general public, because they've got, with the army, they've got, well, I presume it's the army or services of some kind, they have special,
Army.
the army, yeah, so they have special needs, special things that they have to do. So regardless of emotion, they're trained in a certain way. So how is there any difference in how you deal with a vet, for example, than a member of the public?
So there's a lot of overlap. I mean, soldiers are people too. So there's a lot of day-to-day stuff. They have a wife or husband, kids. So there's still a lot of things that are, I would say, more similar than they are different. However, the thing that is unique to soldiers, especially in the combat arena, so there's combat support. I mean, you have administrators in the army too that don't see a whole lot of action. But for those who are infantry, artillery, like they do things that are, I suppose, violent in nature to defend our country. Those people have very unique experiences that, quite frankly, they are having normal reactions to an abnormal situation. War is something that no person should have to witness. It's not, our brain was not created to know what to do in these kind of gruesome experiences. And so soldiers unfortunately shoulder that burden, or first responders, right? So it could be firefighters, police officers. So all of them, they have a unique set of experiences because they have some really abnormal ones, really what we call trauma, right? Traumatic experiences. And that sure does a number to people's brains, just the way that the brain stores that information. It essentially gets stuck in the right hemisphere of our brain, the kind of fight or flight response. It kind of gets stuck there because the brain thinks it's doing them a favor by reminding them that this bad thing could happen again. So any little neutral stimuli could become a trigger. And a lot of the work with the soldiers is beginning to understand what is these traumatic thoughts or reactions defending them from. And does that make sense now that they're back in garrison, they're back in a safe place, back at home, but their brain is still a year ago in the war theater sort of thing. So the counseling is a little bit different in terms of the work we do because it tends to be more trauma centric, right? Working through the trauma.
Mm. So do you still work with soldiers now, or is it just mainly members of the public?
Mainly members of the public. I do have some members of the public who are veterans that do seek me out from my previous experiences, but civilians, mainly civilians at this point.
Okay. So what's your message to anybody who finds themselves stuck. And I mean, imagine a lot of people right this minute, given the year we've just been through, and it's not over yet. But I'm told there's all sorts of things going on behind the scenes, and we've got a lot of positivity coming out over the next few months. So let's pray that is the case. So what can people do now who find themselves stuck? What should they be thinking about? How should they be behaving?
I would say the first piece of the puzzle is figuring out what is keeping people stuck in the first place. So there could be multiple reasons why people are finding themselves in a stuck place. And I'll outline some of those potential reasons, right? It could be fear of failure, not wanting to make the wrong call. So therefore, they'll rather opt out and not choose anything, thinking that that somehow is not a choice. But it is, and life still goes on, and there's still consequences for not choosing. But that could be a reason, is simply not wanting to make any sort of choice because they don't want to be wrong. Some people may be stuck simply because they just don't know really what their options are. They don't know what they can do. So they are just at the same place that they are because they don't know how to do anything differently. Various reasons, right? There's a lot of reasons why people may find themselves in that place. So that's probably the first question that I would propose. Like, is it a fear thing? Is it just a lack of knowledge thing? Because depending on their answer, I would approach the stuckness a little bit differently. Now, a more broad answer would be use the Choose Better framework, because the Choose Better framework is meant for the common person. It's not a hard book to read. I share a lot of little stories about my own life to kind of illustrate that anyone can use it for small things, big things. And the illustration that I use in my book is just like pilots have a sequence of check boxes before they take flight, or surgeons, they have a certain protocol of hygiene because they don't want to end up infecting the very person that they're trying to save. If people of such high caliber jobs as pilots and surgeons have a checklist of things that they want to go through before they do their jobs, why would we leave our important decisions in our lives to chance or to just how we feel in the moment? It just seems kind of hazardous to do that. So, like myself, I am not exempt from human error. Therefore, the framework is really a protocol to get people unstuck. If you don't know what to do, where to go, start with the first step, right? The first step of the framework. And each framework section has one major question, right? It's a question that you can work through in your mind, which I call data point collecting. You're just collecting data points so that by the time you come up with your options, like what are your different options for this situation, it's being informed all the important things that I argue are important to consider before you make a decision. So there is a way out. There is a way to get unstuck. I'm proposing that the framework is one way to go about doing that.
Brilliant, and that sounds a very sensible suggestion. Other people have done it before. You've used the protocol to help others, so why wouldn't it work for anybody? That also fits in with the behavioural profiling styles that I mentor people in as well, because you described one particular style that doesn't like to make decisions. They're worried that if they make a decision, it's the wrong decision, so they sit on the fence and don't make any decision. And they're the people that I personally struggle with, because that's so alien to me. I'm very straight down the middle, I'm a straight talker, and I actually give a health warning on my website. Don't come to me if you want cuddles and coochies, because it's not going to work. I'm not that sort of person. But equally, I can be scary to the sort of people who are less resilient and kind of softer characteristics than me. So we've all got our place in the world, haven't we? Because we can't all be people like me, or can't all be people that sit on the fence. But it's understanding what our strengths are and how we can understand and manage ourselves, but equally how we can manage that interaction with other people, which is where the EQ comes into it, isn't it? The emotional intelligence.
Exactly. And for me, I'm probably more like you. I don't know if I've been described as scary per se, but
I have.
I'm a pretty straight shooter. Have you? Well, that means your clients are just more honest with you than they are with me. But I am definitely a straight shooter for the most part. But for people that are on the fence, as you call it, I call it the indecisives, right? The indecisive people, they just, in my opinion, it's just taking a step back with them and understanding what are the fears, what, and being able to just put to words what is behind the indecision. And there's power in that. There's something powerful about being able to verbalize what's going on in the background, because then you can't be in denial anymore. You see it for what it really is. Now we have a fighting chance to do something about it.
Mm. And as you say, knowledge is power, isn't it? So if they don't know the answer, by making an inquiry and asking questions, they can get to the answer that helps them to move along. And sometimes it's seeing people as yourself, sometimes it's reading a book, sometimes it's just internally questioning themselves. But I think when you have people who are stuck, they do need outside help, and that helps them to kind of get along a lot quicker than they otherwise would if they were trying to do it themselves. So remind us again of your book and your contact details, Dr. Timothy Yen, so people can get hold of you.
Of course. And I believe England has Amazon too, right? There's like an Amazon UK. So,
Yes, yes.
hey, we're in good company. People can't pick up this resource. Again, it's Choose Better, the Optimal Decision Making Framework. And you can find it on Amazon and other booksellers, as well as through my website, which is just my name, www.timyen.com. So TIMYEN.com. And if people have any other questions, want to contact me for various things, you can contact me through my website as well.
Fabulous. And I'm guessing now, because of Zoom and the lockdown situation, you're very happy to help people on an internet call of a virtual consultation now.
Majority, since the shelter in place, oh my gosh, we just hit a year. So since March of 2020, I've been seeing all of my clients online on telehealth, and surprisingly, it's been very effective. People have been getting a lot of value out of the work that we do online. So definitely open to coaching kind of work for whoever's listening. You can contact me and see if we're a good fit.
Fabulous. Dr. Tim Yen, thank you very much for your time today. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Nice talking to you, Elaine. Thank you so much.